Welcome back, everyone, to What the Truck. It is Friday, August 22nd, and boy, has there been a lot of news since I last spoke to you all on Wednesday. Well, guess what? We're going to be diving into some news as well, especially regarding the recent announcement by the Department of State and worker visas. So that's going to be some crazy stuff going down. But we're going to have a really good show as well. It's the Autonomous Trucks Edition. And by the way, I did not plan this in advance that we were talking about autonomous trucks, right? As the talk of the town is, of course, about drivers in trucks. But we're going to have some really cool folks on the show. We're going to have Shahrukh Kazmi. He's the Chief Product Officer for Volvo Autonomous Solutions, catching up on what they are working on in the space. And then later on in the second half of the show, we're going to have Shawn Kerrigan. He's the co-founder and chief operating officer at Plus. You may know him as Plus AI. So there's been a lot of movement in there, especially around Texas and the autonomy space. So going to be something definitely worth watching. Let's dive in real quick. First, want to thank our sponsor, Verizon Business. From the facility to the fleet, Verizon Business gives you real-time visibility into your supply chain so you can keep on trucking ahead of demand and the competition. Learn more at verizon.com/distribution. Let's kick the ad.
Big.
Small.
Essential.
Big. Small. Essential.
Small.
Essential.
Grande.
Pequeño.
Esencial.
No matter what business you're in, Verizon Business has the network and solutions you need to power it.
Check them out, Verizon Business. Good people as always. Let's dive into some headlines here. Let's kick it. The first one is this is breaking news. It was announced Thursday night that the Trump administration has issued an immediate pause on the issuance of worker visas for commercial truck drivers. This comes from Secretary of State Marco Rubio in a post on the X platform. He also added the increasing number of foreign drivers operating large tractor-trailer trucks on U.S. roads is endangering American lives and undercutting the livelihoods of American truckers. For folks who are not very familiar with how worker visas work for commercial truck drivers, on the current regulations, a foreign driver may obtain a U.S. commercial driver's license, but you need what is called an employment authorization document. We have, of course, the temporary H-2B visa, which allows a company to hire foreign workers for a temporary, seasonal, or non-agricultural jobs. If you need agricultural, that is called an H-2A visa. They all have little letters. There's 11 different types. And then there's the more permanent resident option called the EB-3 visa, which is used to sponsor foreign drivers for permanent, long-term positions and providing the pathway for the green card, or more commonly known as the permanent resident card. It's valid for up to 10 years. So there has been a lot of moves here, of course, in the past week. This is, of course, as the Trump administration is making more moves targeting commercial work visas in reaction to headlines involving a fatal semi-truck crash in Florida that killed 3 people. Following the accident, of course, Department of Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy had announced earlier this week on Tuesday that the FMCSA is also investigating the driver and the carrier, White Hawk Carrier, which was involved. This is, of course, a developing story, so you want to stay in touch. Check it out on the FreightWaves.com main site. Personally, I think this is part of a larger thing where we are looking at the nearly 55 million folks who are here in the U.S. on visas, so it looks like this may be part of a larger effort to look into what's going on with that. So stay tuned. In other news, we have the state of freight in August. And so unfortunately for you out there, the outlook remains murky. Part of that is from housing and auto demand is lagging while carriers are continuing to exit the market. If you missed it, of course, you can be on demand. The founder and CEO of FreightWaves, Craig Fuller, sat down with Zach Strickland, head of freight market intelligence at Sonar, and we're talking about how freight demand remains historically weak. If you're looking at national truckload volumes, they are down between 14 and 15% on a year-over-year basis. Demand is even lower than 2019. Strickland adds that a lot of people I've talked to in the shipping community, they're still dealing with some levels of uncertainty, not just from their procurement strategies for the raw inputs and things in the goods economy, but also from their consumers and in the downstream, because there's still some level of, we don't know where this economy is going. So stay tuned as well. We'll hopefully figure out where the economy is going. I have reached out to the economy for comment. It has not gotten back to me. In other news, retailers and trucking are clashing over vehicle weight limits, writes FreightWaves' John Gallagher. The debate leads up to the next surface transportation bill. Retailers are pressuring the Trump administration and lawmaker to raise truck weight limits as Congress begins shaping that next highway bill. This comes from comments filed in response to the U.S. Department of Transportation's request for policy priorities and next year's surface transportation reauthorization. The current law expires at the end of September 2026. And so, what they want to do is, according to the Retail Industry Leaders Association, they want the DOT to consider modernizing truck weight limits. So, if we increase it, increasing allowable truck weights, particularly with vehicles equipped with additional axles and safety features, it can significantly enhance freight efficiency. So that's going to be something worth looking at. Let's look at the pilot program real quick. Right now, we are limited to 80,000 pounds or up to 91,000 pounds on six axles. That is part of the proposal to Congress. Okay, so they can increase the truck weights from interstates from 80,000 to 91,000 pounds. Another proposal would have allocated the weight increases for up to 88,000 pounds for certain auto haulers. Keep an eye on that. Of course, as you increase the weight, you may need to replace the roads quicker. So there's going to be a lot of things to deal with, especially on that bill from an infrastructure standpoint. Let's switch gears a little bit here. We have some more news. JB Hunt has tapped Brad Delco as its next chief CFO. The current CFO, John Kulo, will transition into a chief accounting officer role. JB Hunt Transport Services announced this on Thursday that Brad Delco, the senior vice president of finance and investor relation lead, is taking that CFO position effective September 1st. And let's see real quick as well. Delco had joined JB Hunt back in 2019. Prior to that, he had spent 14 years in various corporate finance and equity research roles at firms such as Stevens. So check it out. Congratulations to the folks at JB Hunt. All right, folks. Well, that's a wrap for our headlines. Let's dive into our first guest here. We're talking with the folks at Volvo Autonomous Solutions, and we're talking with Shahrukh Kazmi. He is the chief product officer there. And Shahrukh, absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Thomas. Great to be here.
Tell us, dive into a little bit of your background, and then we'll start looking into what you all are working on, especially with these autonomous truck runs in Texas.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I've spent most of my career in autonomy, been in various OEMs and tier ones, and finally now in Amazon in robotics, and now in Volvo Autonomous Solutions at the forefront of level 4 autonomy.
And one of the cool things here, of course, is that you all have been hauling freight for DHL between Dallas and Houston. Looking at it from a product perspective, how are these trucks specifically engineered to handle what Texas has to offer, which can be rain, sleet, or sometimes even snow, which unfortunately shut down their power grid like a year or two ago?
Exactly. It looks, despite all these challenges, the Texas Sunbelt area, it's the prime spot, not only for the logistical freight, which goes through that corridor, and also the sun and the overall environment we get in the operational design domain. It helps us to, and our partners, individual drivers, partners like Vabi and Aurora, to build a system which can handle very complex scenarios, like the one you're seeing on the screen, from doing path planning, handling multiple weather scenarios, and even looking at day or nighttime challenges. And all this could come by driving on such roads and gathering that data. And we have spent a lot of time to design to this Texas and wider operational design domain.
And one of the cool things is the V&L autonomous truck is running daily, freight daily in and out of Texas. And so you're collecting all kinds of data. When we're looking at for an autonomous truck, what is very important in terms of performance? I know when we're thinking of a regular human driver, I'm thinking of certain things like, why aren't you driving enough? For an autonomous truck, thankfully, it doesn't really have to take a break. What are some of the big things that you are looking at?
Yeah, exactly. And I think this comes down to being the part of the Volvo Group, that we have to ensure the same kind of reliability in terms of reliability, uptime, and the service with the autonomous truck needs to provide. But when you start using those assets for a longer duration, you need to put an infrastructure in place which can support that. And we have spent a lot of time setting up that infrastructure. So it's not just about the autonomous truck, the whole ecosystem of uptime, support, how we're going to go and supply certain services to maintain those trucks, all that. And with DHL, we are proving not only the technology part, but also that ecosystem. So we're learning a lot, and we are ensuring that the expectations which comes for autonomy, that it is higher uptime, continuous support, that remains there. And our Volvo Group and our team are doing a tremendous effort to bring that to scale.
And one of the other cool things you're collecting on is data on how the components, durability, how the hardware is working. A lot of these autonomous vehicles have redundant systems. That was one thing that when they say automotive grade, I kind of took it for granted until I got to meet some OEMs. And you all really put these things through the ringer. And so, is it kind of a double approach where we're looking at software adjustments, software updates, and then addition when we're rolling things out? How actually does this hardware and capabilities perform? Because these things are going to come off the production line. They're going to be all end to end with these Volvo VNLs.
Yeah, exactly. So it is one task to put all this redundant system. By redundant system, I mean like all the backup system. When the driver is not there, you need the braking, steering, communication. We have six of them, um, and once you put them, you have to put them at the autonomy grade level. And that autonomy grade level ensures that the traditional reliability of the parts and the failure mechanisms are all thought through and well tested. And then putting them into a production path, production line, like in our new Revel Valley plant, where we are building them, we are putting scale and autonomy at the core of our autonomy offering. This enables us to not only prove that the technology is there, but also prove that we are ready to scale when the time comes and when it is the time to remove the safety driver. So all those six redundant system, they go through a very rigorous, like the normal automotive standard systems to prove a component, from braking, steering, communication, energy and power supply systems, and vehicle motion management control. All these systems have to go through quite a lot of rigorous testing.
And one of the fascinating things, there's been a lot of talk about they're rolling off the factory versus retrofitting them yourself. Some autonomous trucking companies are currently retrofitting them, testing their own capabilities. Volvo and others, these guys are coming off purpose-built, factory installed. Talk about some of the advantages as well, because one of the fascinating things is it pays to have scale, and sometimes bigger is better. So let's dive into some of that in terms of like safety and uptime compared to if I'm just installing these things, something happens. Now I got to like take even more downtime to figure out how to fix it because I just don't have that
Hmm.
supply chain infrastructure.
Yeah, yeah. And as I mentioned before, putting the challenge of just proving and putting the stack on top, like all the extra equipment, and proving that the autonomy works, it's one. But then you still have to spend years to bring it to scale. Volvo took a different approach. We, from the day one, when we started designing those trucks, we started putting the packaging, even the for all those systems right from the ground up. That's why we started to put the scalability and also the safety elements in from day zero. And that meant that when they come into production plant, and when then we can go from tens, hundreds, and thousands of trucks, we don't need to go through an additional effort because we spend a lot of time going through and proving them through the system. And as you mentioned now, once you have put all this system in, then it's not just about offering an autonomy truck or autonomous truck at level 4 applications. It's about ensuring that the rest of the ecosystem, the uptime, the support services, the terminals, all this is connected. And we have put a lot of communication equipment, even the backup of communication equipment, to ensure that it is connected. Data is utilized to ensure support and uptime are available all that time. And if we are providing a service for our customers, to even communicate to them where the truck is, what it is doing, and what might be its arrival time. All that is only possible if you go back at day one and start thinking about safety and autonomy at that point and start delivering that. Otherwise, it takes a lot of time to go from proving a technology to going at scale.
And one of the big things you mentioned it earlier about some of these redundancy systems. Lots of talk, especially convincing within the driver community, is about how safe are these compared to a human driver. And so when we're talking about it, you had mentioned some stuff like braking and steering. Give us a run through of if we're making a driverless truck, what are some of the big things on a product standpoint that I need to make sure are really really good before commercialization in terms of fail safes? Is there kind of like some big key ones, or is it like retrofitting the entire truck end to end?
Yeah, no, a very good question, and this comes down to there isn't a standard because it's new technology. There isn't a standard which says how do you ensure safety. So at Volvo, we believe that we did a thorough risk assessment and looking at what are the things which needs it a backup to do one thing. When the driver is in the vehicle, they can perform a minimum risk maneuver or like a safety maneuver. They can pull on the side and they can execute what they need to do. So when the driver is not there, we have to ensure certain functions are there. So those six systems: braking, steering, communication, backup energy and power storage system, vehicle motion management and control, and even the backup compute system, like its thinking brain, all these are then powered by two different power sources, and their purpose is that in the event of a issue or if a failure of some sorts, the truck still has the capability on its own to execute a minimum risk maneuver and come to a safe stop at a safe position or location. And that is needed. And we believe that that ensures that we can handle all the bigger risk elements, which on a very dynamic highway you can face. That even if we encounter that situation, we have an ability to perform a safe maneuver. But before we go to that, our partners and we have spent a lot of time ensuring that our uptime or our availability of autonomous mode is very high. And when we are running with our DHL partners, we can already see that we can run in autonomy mode and gather that data, which actually helps us to become more smarter in analyzing how effective our those systems are.
And one of the big questions I get a lot is right now safety drivers are in the accompanying the truck. You can see them inside. You can wave at them. One of the big things is for companies, including Volvo, when we want to remove the safety driver and actually have the driverless truck. What are some of the milestones that we need to get to, and what are some of the things folks need to pay attention to through all the press releases whenever a company says, "Okay, we're actually ready to take the driver out"? Because that was one of my big questions. Can we theoretically, if we meet the green light and everything's good from the certification, can we roll with drivers out of the truck now, or is it something where there's a few more steps?
Yeah, if I wouldn't talk on what the timeline is, but I will tell you what the signals are. Our technology is currently running with a safety driver between Dallas and Houston, with our partner DHL. We are producing in a plant in New River Valley in Dublin, Virginia, where from going from tens to hundreds and plan towards thousands. So we are moving towards that direction. That gives us a confidence that we believe technically technological level we are ready or almost there. Our partners have already proven that technology, like Aurora recently proved that technology on road as well. But because the word Volvo and our partners, we have a strong belief that we should do this in a very responsible manner. And going through a lot of data collection. So now we are putting the safety driver in because we want to gather a lot of data, real world data, to prove and gather that information and then come to a conclusion that now we believe that we can remove that safety driver, because this is not just about providing autonomy, and I think it's also about the brand and the trust it has. So we spend a lot of time on that. The typical steps when we believe we are ready in partnership with our partner would be that we would have gathered a lot of data. We'll take that data to analyze and look at what are the corner cases. We go and see them. We will look at our operational design domain, the route itself, and eventually we will decide that that data gives us the information, and then we will go through a very rigorous internal release process we have developed within and also with our partners to go through and make that decision by looking at all the facts. And that is not delayed by that we are technologically not ready. It is delayed by the responsibility that we have to do it in a very safe way and in step alignment and communication with our regulatory partners as well. So that's why I think we have to be very calculated about how we go about and do that. So we maintain trust in that technology.
And I wanted to circle back. One of the things you were talking about was operationally, and so making sure you're maintaining the levels of safety as well. Is it currently? I think you guys are operating. I talked with some folks at Act Expo as well. You had a really cool booth there. One of the things is some folks are saying truck ports. Some are saying they can like drive and like actually pick them up. For Volvo specifically, what are some of the interesting things that maybe drivers don't know about in terms of it's one thing to see autonomous trucks on the road and they're operating. What are some of the behind the scenes things when they're in the truck port that need to be done before these guys go back out onto the road? Is there any additional things compared to what traditional trucking is, where I just kind of do a pre-trip, look around, and then sign off, and boom, I'm on the road?
Oh, very good question. Because and as you introduce autonomy to any challenge, and especially in trucking, before the truck leaves, we go through a rigorous inspection process. I know normal trucking goes through that as well, but the risk is higher because the human is not in. Eventually, the human is not in that truck. So what we go through is to check and do a pre-inspection of all our autonomous system. We have a very rigorous checklist for which we gather a lot of data, and we prove that this system is now ready to go. Just by typical things, by looking at if all the sensor sets are clean, they're ready to go. There's no obscuration on those sensors. So, and then doing the normal checks, which in normal trucking inspections you need to do. So we have built that inspection procedures to ensure that when it leaves in a state which ensures that it remains in its specification and operational design domain. So as I mentioned, it's not just about the autonomous truck. We have spent a lot of time doing the innovation in how we're going to go and send the truck through the terminal and release it into autonomy mode. So a lot of people in our teams are just spending a lot of time with our partners to go and make that process very robust. And we are learning a lot by that inspection and data gathering as well.
And looking ahead here, while we got a little bit of time left, tell me a little bit about one of the big things is everyone's announcing try either driverless out. We have production modes between 2025 and 2027. What are the things Volvo you all are most excited about or looking forward to as you're conducting this test? Anything either really cool that as you've picked up on, or something that's kind of on your radar that folks may need to pay attention to as we continue to see more releases in the autonomous space about either safety validations, or I've completed my safety case, or I'm about to do this. What's the best way? What are some of the big signals compared to the noise that you all are keeping in mind before you all officially
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
green light?
Yeah, I think the typical, and we already there. So some of the milestones we have crossed, doing that in a safe mode in a test track, then moving into the next step onto public road with safety driver, and then eventually, when the time is right, to remove the safety driver. The type of signals you will see is a confirmation that we now have a fully completed safety case, safety framework. We have gathered all that data. So that kind of language, which is linked to that we are ready to go. Also to this to the level that our infrastructure is now ready, and we have gathered enough data to know and validated our assumptions that it is ready to go. And it is ready to sign off as well. But some of the exciting things are that beyond autonomy, we are actually learning from our customers as well. That as we are providing that service, we are learning from that experience. So this tells us that now currently we are between Dallas and Houston, and when we pick up the next route, we have already learned a lot, not only just for the autonomy part, but adding the real value to the customer as well. And when you start looking at these signals, then eventually you will see that we will be coming within joint partnership with the message that we are ready to go. And in that time, we would have approached the right regulatory authorities to build that confidence and take that control step. So there will be few more signals before we get there.
Well, Shahrukh, thank you so much for hopping on, giving us some great information as well. Folks want to learn more about Volvo Autonomous, check out your releases and get more info. What's the best way to get that?
Yeah, you can go to our website. If not, we also have a YouTube channel, and especially we are also on, if anyone is on LinkedIn, you can see a lot of material there. Our teams have recently done a lot of communication in Texas as well. That is also available online. And yeah, stay tuned.
Thanks so much, Shahrukh. We'll definitely have to catch up again soon.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.
before we bring on our next guest, I think the autonomous space is very fascinating, especially when we're talking about the operational complexities. And so that's one of the things where one of the fascinating conversations is like, how do you pre-trip an autonomous truck? How do you find out, like, going through a weigh station? So it's really cool to watch. I'm a big fan of the redundancy systems. It reminds me of kind of the early days of airlines, except that the goal right now is to make sure that the regulations are going to be more favorable, because right now it is, given the patchwork of state regulations in addition to the federal regulatory thing, trying to figure out a framework. There's a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, if there's a really cool one here. I had a cool conversation with Shawn. They've been working on Plus AI. They also have some OEM partnerships. And so it's going to be really cool to catch up on them, what they're working on. They had recently also, they're going public. So they're merging with Churchill via a SPAC. And so this can be one of the big news we're going to be talking about, in addition to having an OEM-led factory build approach. So that's one of the big things in the space for drivers, is that, we're in the early stages. We still have handfuls of trucks on the road from each of these companies. And so from all the doom and gloom and the posting and stuff, it's really fascinating technology. I know that there's obviously concerns about how new this technology is in terms of jobs and stuff. But one of the big things is I'm going to put on my network design hat, because I used to actually work in trucking. I was at US Express. One of the big things I did was called truckload network design. And so imagine you have 2,500 trucks and you need to figure out, how do I get the most out of them? And so for drivers listening, you're thinking, why are my miles per week really low? That was actually a problem for the motor carrier, because a lot of times they'll complain that the large carriers are not giving them enough miles. Well, one of the things is that when you're thinking of how many potential miles a week I can get, you are constrained by the actual network, which means the summation, or all the loads in a certain geographic area, and then what also connected to them. So imagine it like a spider's web or fluid dynamics. And so one of the fascinating things when we're talking about the network and how autonomous trucks will roll into it is going to be one of those big things, which is, will autonomous trucks take over one of the longer haul OTR kind of areas? So when I'm thinking of that, I'm thinking between 5 and 750 miles, or even over 1,000, because one of the bigger trends that has been happening is that supply chains have been contracting. A lot of these warehouses and distribution centers, it used to be you'd have them up in California, you do a big old long haul to like Texas. Nowadays, we're seeing them pop up in a lot of in-betweener. You notice Phoenix has also grown a lot in activity, partially because of geographic. We're seeing a huge increase in terms of Texas itself, between San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, and Laredo. So there have been some structural shifts, and one of the big questions is how do autonomous trucks fit into it? So my personal take on that is I don't think we'll see a situation where somehow autonomous trucks go full Skynet or anything like that. I do believe that drivers, we'll see a lot more day cab drivers and such, in terms of like a hub and spoke network. And so it's so hard to talk to folks in trucking, because a lot of the audience, if you think of trucking, there's really like 5 or 6 big different parts. We have the long haul segment, which has your 95 to 100% turnover part, which is traditionally where we see about, driver shortage myths and narratives. We have private fleets, which have a much lower turnover rate. Typically, they're running, you're running the day. You're going to be running in and out of a distribution center, sometimes 200-300 mile radiuses. We also have, in terms of LTL networks, where you have line haul drivers who are going to be running routes. Oftentimes, they're coming home. And so it's interesting. That's one of the big challenges I get. People are like, well, Thomas, it's going to mess things up, or how is trucking going to adapt? But if we're thinking of trucking in general, there's really like 5 different pieces of this multi-layered cake that are involved. Let's see if we got Shawn back in as well real quick. We'll see if we can throw him on and do another audio. Okay. Let's kick it over to our little F3 thing as well, because I need to knock out some stuff while we try to get him on the phone. So let's, one of the big ones, of course, is going to be the Freight Tech 100. The 25's announced at F3. Boom, look at that. Beautiful B-roll. Love to see it. One of the things you want to pay attention to, of course, is that October is the magical date that you need to remember. It's not November this year. It is in October. And so you want to make sure that you are getting your tickets. It's under live.freightwaves.com, Future Freight Festival. That's where we also announced the Freight Tech 25 Awards. You can still put in you have to put in, and it really comes out with a Freight Tech 100 as the first step. And right now we have until September 1st, which is when nominations for Freight Tech Awards are closing. They close on 6 p.m. Monday. Afterwards, we will announce the Freight Tech 100 on September 22nd. And then finally, by November, oh yeah, we got to update the website. I'm going to get on to somebody. October 21st and 22nd, that's when we announce the top 25. And the top 25 is through a third party. So we're not picking it. We have a group of people that are looking through it and making sure that everything is good. So definitely don't want to miss that. I'll be there as well. So hey, it's at the scenic downtown Chattanooga Choo Choo. Going to be super cool. So let's dive back into the post. One of the big questions, of course, is with the current Trump administration and commercial driver work visas. That's going to be one of the big topics we're going to continue to deal with here. And I've been this is a fun question because there's a lot that goes into it. One of the things I have learned through the X platform is that there is a certain segment of folks that you take every year. So in order to get this is one of the wilder ones here. There's a lot of more steps, which makes it really difficult in media because you'd really like to have a really simple, easy story to kind of digest. Usually we want to have like good guys and bad guys, but it looks like this is like a decades-long process in terms of how we're going through it. But one of them is through the H-2B and then the other one. So hang on one sec while I dig through here. We're doing it live right now, folks.
I can, but that was my Mac.
So we'll pull up the article here on the FreightWaves site. What you want to find out.
Every word echoed back to me.
Here we go. Bam. Okay, so when I was doing my research, the H-2B visa and the EB-3 visa, these are the first two things that you got to figure out. And the fascinating part is, in order to get these visas, you have to basically prove to the government that you cannot fill the job. So in order to get the employment authorization document, this is what's blowing my mind for these things. You have to demonstrate it. And so here it is. They're valid up to 9 months, and you have to demonstrate the labor shortage. So one of the things I didn't think about was if we're thinking of a truck driver labor shortage, would that also be because if I prove that there is a labor shortage, I can get the labor? One of the things is we just really don't know how much labor that is operating. I think there was on the X platform, a poster had said maybe 400 positions a year in trucking that were doing it. And so that's one of the big questions is it something where we're in the thousands of drivers when we're trying to figure out the total amount? Or is it something where we have tens or hundreds of thousands of drivers? That's one of the big questions, because if you look at FMCSA databases, it gets really tricky. And so one of the ways to skin this cat would be, all right, well, let's look through all of the the 55 million workers who have these documents, and let's see what their classifications are, because there's 11 different types for these driver work visas. And so you want to look at the H-2B and see if it's specifically for trucking. But then I'm thinking, well, do I need to then do digging into the EB-3 visa? So that's the more permanent resident one. If you go on there is, let me pull this thing up real quick here as well. And so for the EB-3, you are eligible if you're a skilled worker, professional, or other worker. It's not temporary or seasonal, at least 2 years of training and experience, and you need to have certain types of, post-secondary educations. And so that's going to be one of the big questions to find out, because it all goes towards labor certifications. There's a whole thing where you have to basically file with the Department of Labor through 2 different groups, and you fill out another form before you can even do all this. So it's literally like a Byzantine process. That's one of the questions that I'm trying to determine. So, as we have commentators and folks, especially as there's garnered national media attention, one of the big questions we have to ask is, what is the number and how do we find it? Which, as we've seen with other stuff, good luck trying to figure that part out yet, because it is still very much in the woods. Okay, I think we got Shawn back now. We are putting the train back on the tracks, but in this case, I hope it is the autonomous truck instead of a train. We're welcoming back Shawn Kerrigan. He's the co-founder and chief operating officer at Plus. Shawn, absolute pleasure to have you back on. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you working with us as well. Let's dive in here, because 2025 has been a very big year, and you all recently had published the KPIs for one of your safety cases. That's one of the big topics that folks are trying to figure out, is when is the right time and what are the milestones we need to meet. Let's dive into that and walk us through what some of these milestones are as you all are developing your tech.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think this year has really been a pivotal year for autonomous technology development, and people starting to see this technology come to market and be commercialized in different spaces. You've seen this a little bit on the robotaxi side, and there's just been a lot of just tremendous progress in terms of what's happening on the autonomous trucking side. So we've always said that we think, to bring this to market safely, you need to have the complete ecosystem, right? You have to have the software, which is what we really focus on, as well as all the hardware, so the redundant braking, steering, and other components. And then you need to have all the right regulatory pieces in place. And so this year, I think we've seen some important milestones on all those fronts. So in terms of the software, earlier this year, we talked about some of the testing we've done in terms of testing of our vehicle with nobody in the truck. So this was done on close course, but really testing the different safety scenarios that you need to make sure you can safely handle before encountering those scenarios on the public road without anybody in the truck. As well as a lot of the performance and the trajectory of that performance in terms of how we're doing in terms of performance on the public roads. And so that's the KPIs that we released recently. So those really all come together, I think, to show our commitment to transparency and a disciplined approach to bringing this towards commercial launch. So we're aiming for 2027 commercial launch readiness. And this sort of transparency and the publishing of both the historic trajectory on these different metrics, as well as what we're aiming for as we head towards commercial release, I think is an important part of really building that trust, with regulators, with partners, and the general public.
And one of the big things, when I'm thinking of regular trucking, I'm thinking rate per mile, deadhead, average rate per mile, show me the money, basically. One of the things you all have, you have three of them. There's autonomous miles percentage, or AMP. And another one I think is interesting is remote assistance free trips. And so these are going to become topics, as the race for autonomy continues to heat up. Talk about what some of that means compared to the traditional things that trucking operators are looking at, because it does, without a driver, it does add a few extra steps.
Yeah, certainly. So behind the scenes, of course, we track just an immense number of metrics and KPIs, but at a high level, we think that these are really the three key metrics to keep an eye on as we head towards commercialization. So that autonomous miles percentage, or AMP, will basically head towards 100%. It's just more and more of our operations are done fully autonomous without any intervention and without the safety driver intervening in any way. And then the remote assistance-free trips, or RAFT as we call it, is really the percent of trips that operate end-to-end from departure to arrival without any human assistance, either in the vehicle or remotely. And so we think that as we tracked in the last part of the year, up from 69% to about 76% today, shows just the tremendous progress we're making towards being able to commercially operate without the remote assistance. And then the third one is that the safety case readiness, or SCR. And so on that, we moved from 75% up to 86%. And that is really tracking the completion of the comprehensive safety case that we have in place, that really ensures we've covered all the bases of everything that needs to be checked and ensured before operating driverlessly on the public highways. Now, in terms of targets for those, the safety case readiness, the target is 100%. You have to complete the complete safety case. And so we're on track and have, I think, a good trajectory towards completing that in the coming year. And then in terms of remote assistance-free trips, for that, we're really just targeting over 90%. Because there will always be the remote assistance and teleoperations component of this. And there it's really about ensuring that you're operating at a high enough degree that it really makes good commercial sense to be running the truck, so you don't have excessive remote assistance needed.
And one of the big things is you all are targeting a commercial launch in 2027. Is one of the big things in terms of the milestone is completing the safety case. Is there any other additional things that folks should be aware of in terms of when are we officially ready to go?
Yeah, so we've been working on both a number of these discrete milestones this current year in terms of sort of the driverless testing that we did to test certain elements of that safety case, as well as tracking the overall metric performance in terms of our performance on our initial launch market within Texas, and specifically the Texas Triangle. As we look ahead to the coming year, a lot of that is really about completing the safety case, so wrapping up the validation, and hitting both the next level of performance in terms of those metrics, as well as a number of discrete testing milestones that we'll be announcing later this year and into next year.
And let's talk about the OEM partnerships. This is cool because you all got to do some real world testing, not only in Texas, but you got to go to Sweden as well. So that was going to exotic places. Talk about the value of having an OEM here, in addition to how that's also impacting your plans. Because, if you're having Texas and Sweden, I can imagine maybe I can double dip and I can get like Europe and the US based on, the possibilities.
Yeah, so we've long believed that having OEM partnerships is absolutely critical to deploying and scaling this type of technology. So today at Plus, we're the autonomous technology partner to three global OEMs. So Traton Group, so that includes International here in the US, as well as Hyundai's commercial vehicle group, and then Iveco, who's another global OEM based in Europe. So we've long believed that this is important for several reasons. So one is just from a safety and reliability perspective. So we can retrofit trucks that operate, for tens of thousands of miles, but it's very different to build trucks that are going to be reliable and safe for 1 million miles. And so that's a core part of what OEMs do is designing these trucks that they can operate safely and reliably for 1 million miles, and they're really good at it, right? So we think that is an important part of the overall solution. Second is that from a scalability perspective, you can retrofit tens of trucks or even hundreds of trucks, but this isn't about hundreds of trucks. This is about thousands of trucks. And for that, you really need OEM factory production. And then third, and perhaps most importantly, that's what the customer wants, right? So fleets want to buy autonomous trucks from OEMs because that just matches the current industry value chain structure, right? In terms of maintenance, in terms of commercials, in terms of all these other aspects and structures. And so that's critically important to reduce the friction of adoption. And I think everyone realizes that it also improves the economics because OEMs can build these trucks at a lower cost than anyone can retrofit them. And so for all these reasons, we've really focused on building a strong ecosystem and really strong OEM partnerships.
And let's talk about you all are going public as well. Congratulations, going public
Thank
via a SPAC with Churchill. Give us the backstory and talk about what that means as you all are planning to do your commercial launch in addition with the partnerships.
Yeah, thank you. So since we got started back in 2016, we've made really significant progress in terms of building this advanced AI technology that's going to enable the safe and scalable operation of these autonomous trucks. And our long-term vision is really to enable the fleet operators to run these networks to improve overall safety, efficiency, and just reduce costs. So going public is an important part of that journey in that it helps provide us access with the capital and the support that's going to help advance our product roadmap, help us in terms of continue to develop our commercialization strategy, and really help us deliver this overall solution. And it also brings with it another level of transparency. So similar to the metrics, building transparency and trust with the marketplace.
And kind of looking ahead here as well, one of the big things is you recently had a collaboration with Goodyear talking about tire intelligence, which I think that's fascinating. Folks sleep on the tires. I know that electric vehicles have specially made tires. Talk about the autonomy space. Is there any cool potential? I'm assuming an autonomous truck is going to behave differently, perhaps, than a driver, and maybe the tires may need some adjustments.
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited about that collaboration. I think that with an autonomous truck, it really opens the door to really accessing and optimizing across so many more dimensions of data because the way the system works. And so in this collaboration with Goodyear, we're working with their intelligent tire technology suite, Sightline. We're looking at how we can use that to really help enhance the performance of our SuperDrive system. So the goal is really ties back to the parts of our value proposition around safety and efficiency of autonomous freight. And so that the Goodyear Sightline technology delivers real-time sensor-driven insights into the tire health, the road surface conditions, friction levels. So as we gear up to launch this autonomous technology product, we think that this technology, this tire technology, could really help us further enhance the benefits and help broaden the ODD, so the operating conditions under which you could reliably operate the autonomous system. So this is something that we're really excited to be working on.
And while we have a little bit of time left as well, I wanted to get your thoughts on the regulatory environment. So we have not only a patchwork of state regulations. Texas right now is the super hot place to be due to its more favorableness. Talk about the federal one. There was some recent news about trying to get an AV regulatory framework. Kind of where are we at with that? And I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that we're really excited about where we stand and what the outlook is from a regulatory perspective for this technology. So, I mean, as you noted, within Texas today, and actually across most of the U.S. Sunbelt, you can commercially operate driverless trucks today. Now that said, there are still a number of points of friction in terms of that deployment, as well as there's a patchwork across different states, and so we think some of the things that are going on at the federal level could be very exciting. So there was the DOT put out an RFI recently, I think it was just earlier this week, basically taking a look at what are some of those points of friction and what could be done to help streamline the deployment. Our California Congressman Vince Fong just introduced a new bill to help create a federal regulatory framework, which we also think would be exciting, is to create sort of uniformity across the whole U.S. So I think that it's overall what we've seen is that this is very much a bipartisan issue, and the current administration in particular is really supportive of the deployment of the technology and really wants to help the U.S. be first in terms of deployment and a global leader in this technology. And so I think the type of positive regulatory momentum we have is only going to say further streamline the opportunity here and help us bring this technology to market.
And one of the questions I always get is we see a lot of robo taxis, though. I can get in a Waymo. They're kind of going around. We've got a few other ones, Zooks, and a few. Is that something where I guess, is there any help in terms of regulatory framework with maybe the little robo taxis helping it? Or because it's a big rig on the road, you almost have to have your very own strategy? There's not kind of like any interplay in terms of, for robo taxis versus hauling goods, people versus goods.
It's a great question. So there are some differences just in terms of the regulatory agencies for trucking versus passenger cars, but I think perhaps the most exciting part of what we've seen with the growth and deployment of the robo-taxis on the passenger car side is just really helping build public trust and helping build understanding that this technology is here and now, right? That you can deploy autonomous vehicles and they do operate very safely. And so that value proposition that we've talked about and we've seen in terms of improving safety, improving efficiency, and so on, you're starting to see that in other segments. And so it's coming very soon in trucking as well.
And final question as well, if we're looking for the 23 herbs and spices and we're at maybe 21, what are the two other herbs in terms of what would we need? Would we need an autonomous regulatory framework from the federal government, or is there any kind of blockages as we move towards to 2027? Any kind of specific roadblocks that you think we need to get handled on that regulatory side before we start to see this widespread adoption?
So we don't think there are any missing ingredients, so to say. I think that all the right pieces are there. A lot of this is just that, some of this just takes time to get over those last milestones. A lot of this is about validating the safety, ensuring really the safety and reliability of the system as you start to roll it out and scale. And so we feel like we're actually in a very good place from a regulatory standpoint and from a core technology development standpoint. So it's really about completing those steps of validation and gearing up for commercial launch.
Well, Shawn, thank you so much for hopping on the show and working with us as well. We really appreciate getting to catch up. If folks want to learn more about Plus, check out what y'all are working on, what's the best way to get more info?
Just go to our website, Plus AI. But thanks for having me today. It's great to see you. It's great to be on the show.
Yeah, we'll catch up again soon.
All right. Thank you.
We're coming near the end of this episode, dear listener, but while you're at it, I have a little bit of housekeeping. I did tell you all about F3, but I forgot to tell you about my special discount code. You need to put in WTTF325, get you $900 off. There it is. Look at that. Use the code WTTF325. If you're just listening to this on demand, we have a really cool code. We just threw it right up on the screen. You'll love to see it. While you're at it as well, of course, obviously go and check it out. I have another event. It is a virtual event. I want you all to sign up for that while you're at it. We are having a cross-border logistics summit, so you don't want to miss that out as well, especially with all this news going around about the types of labor. So how will that impact the border? Who knows? But maybe you'll find out if you check it out. Well, folks, that's a wrap. It's Friday. We are coming close to the weekend. Thank you all so much for joining me here on What the Truck. Stay tuned, though. We'll have a lot more stuff coming up, and I will see you all on Monday.